Willie D Live. What's up? Family rapper Rod Wave was arrested in Fulton County, Georgia, Tuesday on 14 charges including aggravated assault involving the use of a firearm at his Atlanta area home, which cops say broke his previously granted bond. Backstory: RD Doob was visiting his place on April 21st with his realtors and other associates after it had been burglarized. Police say he and one of his associates got into a verbal argument as they were carrying out items from the residence, which is when a Glock 2010mm semi-automatic pistol was pulled and fired. Rod allegedly fired 14 rounds in total. 11 hit his associate's 2025 Mercedes G-Wagon, 1 round struck his 2022 Rolls-Royce, 1 round hit the wall of his residence, and the final round has not been located according to law enforcement. Once neighbors and police was alerted. Police say Rod began cleaning up shell casings and even tried to flee the scene to prevent apprehension. Police say the assault and subsequent actions by Rod broke his active bond order, which stemmed from an October 2020 battery incident. Consequently, a warrant for his arrest was executed with charges including possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, reckless conduct, criminal damage to property in the second degree, willful obstruction of law enforcement officers, a felony count of tampering with evidence, simple assault, and conspiracy to commit a felony. He was arrested Tuesday with a grand total of 14 charges and was released the same day on a $50,000 bond. The new charges included aggravated assault, a second count of possession of firearm during an attempt to commit certain felonies, a second count of reckless conduct pointing or aiming a gun or pistol at another, a second count of obstruction of law enforcement, a second count of criminal damage to property in the second degree, and a second felony count of tampering with evidence. Rod's attorneys Drew Finland and Marissa Goldberg says there's absolutely no truth to these allegations. Rod was a victim of a home burglary. He did not commit a crime. How he's even charged with anything is beyond us. Get on out here messing with a black man. They didn't say the black man part, but you know how it go. Family Rod. Come on, man, come on. Rod, you're already on probation, bro. Let me tell you something about this probation thing. When they give you probation, that's your final warning that you're going to prison. That's the final warning. Look, man, we're trying to work with you. Don't come back in here, do this probation and everything, and be cool. You're already on probation. You're a felon moving around with a gun. You're a felon who goes outside of your house and starts shooting your car and shooting your homeboy car. Allegedly, hopefully these allegations are just that. Maybe they end right there. Hopefully this ain't true, because it just don't make sense for somebody to make a move like that. That just don't make sense to me. I get it, fam. When you know if Rod is from the hood or whatever, but I do know if you grow up in that, it ain't as easy to turn it off. It ain't like that. Some people think, oh, now that you got money, now you just start immediately living a different way. Just like when you get money, you don't change your taste in women or men. Just like when you get money, you don't change your eating habits. I'm talking about whether you eat, mannerably, right? You don't change those type of things. You don't change if you are a more stingy person or a generous person. The money just magnifies who you are. If you're freaky, if you're a super freak, the money just going to give you more access and options to be even freakier. When they give you probation, that is the judge's excuse to give you 30 years when you end up back in his courtroom, because guess what, family? He gonna say, I gave you a chance, and everybody, including you, are gonna have to agree. Yeah, because he did give me a chance and I blew it. What we don't want to do is end up in a courtroom begging for mercy from people who was hired to not show us any mercy. Now, I know what some of you thinking, man, this dude got all that money and he crashing out like that. Family, it ain't that simple. Some of you have really bad habits right now that you carried on from childhood. You've been dealing with it for years and years and years, and you can't shake it. You probably improved. I'm sure you've improved, but you ain't been able to shake it all the way. So it don't have to be that you from the streets and you're used to resolving conflict with fist guns and insults. It could be something as simple as having a difficult time with budgeting your money. Just can't figure out how to balance that checkbook, right? It could be something as simple as, well, this is not simple, but drinking. A lot of people got drinking problems. They're not prone to violence, but they are prone to damaging their kidneys. They're prone to falling down, stumbling, embarrassing themselves, publicly. And the thing is, it don't matter if you're from the hood or from the trailer park or from the suburbs. If you were raised in a certain environment to handle conflict aggressively, man, it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute to get through that. So I don't know how Rod was raised, but I can tell you that that's not something that happens overnight. Hopefully he catches snap before, he end up blowing his whole life. Not just his career, but throwing his life away. 14 charges. Oh man, he hit this man with all kinds of charges again. Fam, we're talking about somebody who's already on probation, who already has a felony. Well, he was actually on bond. I don't know if he was on probation. but he's already on bond, and he getting caught up on gun charges. Why not just hire people to do what they do? There's dudes out there and he got the paper, man. Hire you some, to do like whatever. If you want to take it, that, yeah. Hey, I advise you to try to avoid it, because conflict is costly. Even if you win, you might lose. Even if you guys go out there and execute, they might be sloppy. Something may end up coming back on you, and they're gonna get on that stand and point like the Jackson 5 at your head. That's how they do. They're gonna point you out. They are going to point you. I don't give a damn how much they say, man, I got your back. Let me tell you what the DA position is going to be. The DA is going to walk in there and say, Judge, look, Your Honor, this guy already has prior. This guy is already out on bond for serious charges, and now he's right back out here doing something else. He just don't respect the law. And they try. They try to act like they respect the law, right? And because their thing really is do as we say, not as we do. So they break the laws and stuff all the time. You know how they pick and choose who they want to give a break to and all that stuff, but they get real tight, real serious on certain people. You're breaking the law, and we are a nation of laws. And then next thing you know, and sent you up the river. But they got their get back. They got their argument, because they're going to say you was already out on bond and you broke the bond. You was already a felon. We gave you probation. We gave you a chance. You don't respect the law. So take this time to reflect from a distance. Rod seemed like a good dude, seemed like a alright dude. I know he not perfect. Everybody got their flaws, but from a distance seemed like alright dude. But he absolutely got to pull it together. He absolutely got to come up with a plan. I'm going to go ahead and tell y'all what mine was, fam. My plan was to get away from negative energy. That's what I did first. I said, what, I'm around too much negativity, too many people that are tired of living, too many crash dummies. So let me start by doing that. Let me remove myself from those type of people, knowing that I can't always avoid those type of people. But in situations where I can, let me do that. Let me start there, and then let me not go out in the public if I'm not feeling it. Like if if I got bad energy, I try to stay out of the public, because people don't know that you having a bad day. All they see is, oh, what's up, man? Woo. And hey fam, you know how it goes. And so protecting your energy. Number one, also not taking freedom for granted. You got to constantly remind yourself of how bad it is. The alternative to the free world, how bad it is, how nasty those jails are, how bad it is to be away from your family and not have access to your family, how bad it is to eat that food, the disrespect that come with being in prison, the danger that's associated with being in prison, and just the overall idea of having your freedom taken away from you. That should be enough to deter every single person in this country from doing something that could land them in prison. But what say you, fam? Drop a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts.